So I'm really delighted to be with you this morning, and I thank all of you for giving up your time. I want to thank especially Caritas Plymouth and the Vicariate for Evangelisation, who I know have worked together on putting today's programme together. As Father John has already pointed out, the theme is, of course, reaching out, and we're going to be hearing later this morning how we are and can reach out, especially to the elderly and the isolated, to the homeless, and to refugees and migrants. A special word of thanks, I think, to Deborah Fisher and those who work with her, our partners in this enterprise, for putting together today's programme and this important area of our mission in this part of the country. I was delighted also to see this week that the parishes will have received a kind of pro forma questionnaire, which is to be shared with parishioners and which was put together by Caritas Plymouth. And the purpose of that questionnaire is not only to seek out those individuals who might be able to give of their skills and talents, but also to identify in parishes anyone who might be isolated at this time of COVID and who might need a bit more support or accompaniment from us. I want to thank Father John, Deborah, for kind of initiating that piece of work, and I'm sure it will be much blessed. I want to also say how good it is that Caritas Plymouth has been and still is the agent for channeling funds which we've received from the Albert Goubet Foundation, and which has gone in the last 6 months to some of the poorest families and individuals in the diocese. It was remarkable for me to read in a recent report that over 2,000 people in the area have received a grant, totaling altogether over £42,000. And it's been really wonderful to see that. It's exceptionally good news on the back of that, and a sign, I think, of how competently Caritas Plymouth is doing this, that the Albert Goubet Foundation have recently indicated that they're willing to give us another £40,000 to assist the poorest in our area in these forthcoming months. We know how badly that is needed, and we will ensure that it goes to those most in need. Pope Francis, you will be aware, in his recent letter, said of this particular time of the COVID pandemic in which we're living through, we're all in the same boat, where one person's problems are the problems of all. And I suppose it's that sense of solidarity, of common fraternity, that I think it's most important to highlight at this time. At a moment when the country is facing perhaps long months of restrictions and of limited social interaction, it's more important than ever to work at staying connected, not just because it's a good thing to do, but because it also is an expression of who we are. We believe in a God who is Trinitarian and therefore intimately relational. Made in the image of the Trinity, each of us is a relational being. We discover who we are humanly and give expression to our humanity through our relationships. This sense of being relational, of being connected, being interconnected, doesn't just embrace my family, my friends, my immediate community. It embraces every person. This is a clear message that Pope Francis has given for the World Day of the Poor, which, as Father John highlighted, comes on the 15th of November. And recently in that lovely encyclical letter, Fratelli Tutti, brothers and sisters all. At its heart, this beautiful letter is a simple Christian statement that every person is my brother or my sister. The Pope restates very clearly Christianity's central teachings of love, charity, peacemaking, justice, fundamental human rights. It's a timely reminder of the need for compassion in a world which in many ways, at least when we see it on the news, seems to be growing in division, hatred, and conflict. The letter is centered largely on the biblical parable of the Good Samaritan, and it presents to us a vivid call for each of us to reach out to help those who have been assaulted, robbed, left bleeding on the side of the road, and not to, as Pope Francis puts it, hurry off as if we didn't notice. I know that the story of the Good Samaritan is a very evocative one, and it rightly challenges each of us very deeply. We're invited not to go to the other side of the road when we see somebody in need. And I know that in our fallen human nature, that is in some ways an instinctive response in the face of somebody we see in difficulty. The Pope reminds us, keeping our gaze fixed on the poor is difficult, but more necessary than ever if we are to give proper direction to our personal life and the life of society. It is not a matter of fine words, but of a concrete commitment inspired by divine charity. Each year on the World Day of the Poor, I reiterate this basic truth in the life of the Church. For the poor are and always will be with us to help us welcome Christ's presence into our daily lives. Also interwoven among the pages of Fratelli Tutti is a demand for the recognition of the human dignity of every person in the world, regardless of race, religion, gender, class, background, or country. If every human being possesses an inalienable dignity, if all people are my brothers and sisters, and if the world truly belongs to everyone, the Pope writes, then it matters little whether my neighbor was born in my country or elsewhere. My own country also shares responsibility for his or her development. This was brought home to me in rather a stark way recently when I read rather shockingly in a recent article that there is only one intensive care bed for every 1 million people in Malawi. So it is right then that part of our event will include a short presentation about refugees and migrants. Fratelli Tutti talks about the challenges around migration, the risks of human trafficking and modern slavery, and the need for a global response. Our response to the arrival of migrating persons can be summarized by 4 words, the Pope reminds us: welcome, protect, promote, and integrate. So I want to thank all of you again for taking part in this event today, in accord with the words of St. Paul, which the Pope himself quotes in Fratelli Tutti. Through love, serve one another, for the whole law is fulfilled in one word: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Bear one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. May each of us, in helping to bear one another's burdens, be converted more deeply to the love of our neighbor, and especially to the one who is poor. Thank you. God bless you all.